Hey everyone, Ted Simpson here, ready to show you another fine painting. I'm going to give this one a try here. I already got some paints laid out. I was playing around a little bit earlier. And we're going to do a version here, hopefully, of this painting called A View of the Clear Creek, I believe. So, I've got my 12 by 16 canvas set up in the landscape orientation. I'm tapping, bashing a little bit of that alizarin crimson into the brush. You don't need a whole lot here. And I've already covered the canvas with the liquid white, so we're raring to go there. Simple crisscross strokes. I know there's some people that don't even take the paintbrush off the canvas. I kind of am here. You don't have to. We're just throwing some color up there. If it looks interesting to you, about halfway. About the halfway point, and I work up a little bit. Now, whatever's going to be pink, we just drop that in, and I'm going to spin the brush just to get some of the excess paint out of it. And then I go into the final blends. It's basically pink. No big deal there. If you want it a little higher, you can go higher. If you want it a little in the water, you could scrub a little in there. I'm not doing it today, but you could. Now moving right on over to a little bit of phthalo blue. Very strong color. I'm going to put it right up in the corners. Work across the top, just simple X's, crossing. Back and forth, and then I start bringing it down, letting it mix with that liquid white. By the time I hit the pink, it's a little bit lighter. That's what we're going for, so the blue doesn't eat up all the pink. But I'm going from the corners and working my way down, just barely overlapping. That's about it. I'm going to scrub the excess paint out of my brush. Only takes a few seconds here. Just trying to get the bulk of it off, and now we're in blending mode. Simple crisscross strokes, right where the pink and blue meet. Firmer to move color, hit it harder. If you just want to take out some brush marks, you just barely touch. So I'm kind of alternating those strokes. Firmer ones, finish with very light ones, and if you go very light, look at that. We can just drift across the canvas without really putting too much paint on. But if there's a spot I wanted to blend, I just hit it a little harder. There it is. Okay, boy, I do have a mess here. Let me see about moving some of this paint out of my way. Let's see here. I've got that's enough. My titanium white. I have a little touch of the phthalo blue. Now, the darker this blue is, the closer this back mountain will look. The lighter it is, the further away it'll look. But look at that, just loading up this brush. Plenty of this color, as long as it's as dark or slightly darker than the sky. You don't want it lighter than the blue in the sky, you want it a little darker. And all I'm going to do here is just draw a basic mountain border there. Just an interesting shape. You can make it a little taller. See that? And then I leave it alone. I just put some paint out here on the canvas. I just want to put some paint a little lower in this mountain. Something like that. Now what I'll do here with my mostly clean brush, I haven't even used the paint thinner. I'm going to gently press in and just slide that paint out. Work it down. That's it. I push some of that paint away. I'm building out the size and shape of this mountain in literally seconds. You can see here, barely touching at the bottom so it doesn't move so much. It just softens and disappears. The more you mess with it, the lighter it gets, and it all just starts disappearing. So look at that. We got this mountain, and you can make it longer here. It doesn't matter. But you can almost see when I'm messing with it, I'm pulling the pink up a little bit, and it can get away from you. The idea is we don't have to mess with it too much because we're going to be covering some of it up. So I'm going to wipe most of the paint out of my brush. Didn't really clean it in the paint thinner. Look at that, just getting some crimson, a little bit of blue, and less white. See that? I didn't really add any white. Just whatever was in my brush, probably okay, probably the right amount. So the next foothill or next background mountain is going to overlap a little bit of the previous one. Ooh, better make that a little pointier if you want to. See, a little taller. Again, all I'm looking for is an interesting outer edge. And when I overlap a little piece of that previous mountain, we get the sense of depth and distance. So now I'm just kind of pushing in some of that excess paint in my brush. Give me some paint here to move. I want this mountain to be bigger, but I don't want to paint it all. This will give me my little blending misting area. So, wiping the excess paint out of my 1-inch brush. Again, don't have to clean it in the paint thinner. No need. So I'm taking my time here and starting at the top, pulling down and out. Here on the left side, here on the right side, I just pull it down and out to the right. Left side goes to the left. Okay. Using some of that paint that's there to fill this in. See that? You don't have to mess with that much. Figure out what direction the mountain is going, pull it that way, and then the hardest step ever, leave it alone. There we go. Look at how it just fades off into the mist. It's a little closer, it's a little bolder. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. I got some crimson here. I've got that phthalo blue. I'm just going to add a little bit of Prussian blue this time. Prussian blue, no white. Little Prussian blue. And alizarin crimson. To whatever dark color you like. Yeah, that's pretty dark. Pretty dark purple. And we're going to do one more. This one here kind of comes up and over. Something like that. Ooh, maybe a little bump there. Sometimes these things grow because of an errant lump or bump. And this one again is going to overlap the previous one. And then we just fill in some of this color. Not a lot. Give it a little bump there. Just grew. There it is. Notice we're coming right down, and we're going to end this third mountain just about the halfway point, if not just a little bit lower. One more time, starting from the top, pulling some of this color out and down. This time I'm pulling to the right mostly. And then come up here on the left side, keep that edge nice and clean. Pull this color down and fill it in. Left side, right side, left side, right side. Get it mostly done there. Wipe out your brush as needed. Light little touches. Try to avoid bringing the light up to the top. Keep the light down here at the bottom. If you got to mess with the top, just clean your brush. A few little scrubs is all it takes to take that excess liquid white off that you pick up. There we go. Now, we got ourselves a whole lot of stuff going on, don't we? I'm going to mix up, show you what I got here. The rest of my crimson, enough Prussian blue to make it nice and dark. Add a little bit of sap green. I forgot one color. a little bit of Van Dyke brown. What do we get? Dark. That's all we get. A little bit of that brown, green, black. I put a little black in there. Prussian blue, alizarin crimson, all the dark colors. A little bit of green to give it a greenish look, because we're going to be putting in grass and other vegetation. All right, sometimes my paper towels get a little clogged here. I got to stop and flip them over so I can use the other side. What do we got? I'm going to take most of that paint out of my brush, and I'm going to pick a little bit up, just a little bit on both sides here, not diving into the whole thing. It's nice and thin right here. Getting a little bit on my brush, adding to it as needed. And we're going to put a little strip of land, and it's going to overlap, of course, some of the mountain. See how we leave a nice little bit of mist there? Once I got an interesting line cutting it across, I just keep tapping and working this down a little bit. I still have paint in my brush here. I don't really need to keep going. Just tapping and putting a little strip of meadow in here. That's what it's going to be. Before I do too much else, I probably should have done a little bit of water. Our water needs to go on, and it's just a hint of phthalo blue on my 1-inch brush. And Bob actually added a touch of phthalo green, so a little bit of the phthalo blue, pulling down, working both sides here. Just a hint of the phthalo green, and just integrate it into that blue a little bit, as much or as little green as you want. Ooh, that was a lot. There we go, working it in. And I'm just going to pull from the outside in, working my way up, getting close to where I stopped there. And some of these lines I pull out a little further into the center. So this one's kind of short, this one's kind of long, this one's kind of short. Same thing I'm going to do here. I'm going to pull from the outside in and not connect them. I get to decide where this little light sheen is. So I'm going to make mine kind of a little S shape. So where this one was short, this one comes a little long. This one is long, this one is short, this one is long. And we leave this little S thing in there. When I clean most of the paint out of the brush, now I start from the bottom here. You could start from the top, it doesn't matter. And I drag all the way across, and it fills in some of the middle, but leaves a little bit of interesting lighter areas there. That's what I should have done. Now going back to this tapping brush here, now I'm going to tap, and I'm just going to work my way down so these little bits of paint are in the water. Not the whole brush, just these little bits there. Just tapping, not a lot of paint. Filling this in down, and just enough to touch the water. See that? It's all relatively flat. If it's not quite flat, just bring it a little flatter. There we go. Something like that. Now I'm going to do a quick scrub here, but a thorough scrub. Back and forth, little circle scrubs. Pull some of the excess paint out. If you need to, once those paper towels get filled up, just grab a new one. There it is. It's pretty darn clean. So, I'm going to come in here, and we're going to load a bit more color onto the brush here. Pulling a little bit through, pulling down a little at a time. I'm working some color in. Tell you what, I'm going to get a single drop of the liquid white. Pulling down, tapping a little bit, working it into those bristles. Yellow, maybe a little sap green to tint it now. Just a little bit. This is step 1, prepping your brush. Step 2 is actually loading it right up on the tips. You see that little ridge starting to form? There it is. So I got this line of paint right up on the front of my brush, and I'm going to tap. Now we have a little more paint on the brush, so it comes off a little strong. As I'm running out of paint, you'll see it just starts to dull and darken and turn into a little bit of shadow. So I'm working away from that top edge. To reload the brush, I pull some color through both sides again, and then load the tips of the bristles. Make sure you see this ridge. Now I know I have some paint. I come back a little bit, and I'm just going to tap and maybe create a new little ridge line here. I left a little bit of that dark right there, just creating a new little thing. Now, halfway through, you will pick up a little bit of the dark. Even though we use just a little, some of it will pick up and start to dull your brush. All that color in your brush. So I'm just going to change the color now. I wipe the excess paint out of my brush. A little bit of the yellows. Let me get another droplet, one little droplet at a time. We don't want to make soup here. We just want to thin the paint a little bit. Working some color up. There we go. It's a different color, which is perfect for starting a new little section of our background here. Tapping and letting it disappear as I work my way down. I'm going to pull out just a single drop of paint thinner. It's 10 times stronger than that liquid white. Probably more than that, but just want to give you a good sense here. A single drop of paint thinner is a few drops of liquid white. Be careful. Maybe dull this a little bit. Get some paint up on there. Ooh, there it comes off, doesn't it? Definitely want it to come off with these light little tappies. Maybe now a little bit darker. Just mixed a little more green into it. Working my way down. Not too shabby. Now Bob, at the bottom here, he started doing some crazy stuff, you know? He loaded so much paint, he was literally holding the oval brush, very similar to the 1-inch brush, the round brush that is, and just started slapping at the canvas. And you know, when you're at home and you got unlimited supplies, go right ahead. It uses a ton of paint. It really gloops it into the brush. And just for the sake of my class here, I'm going to kind of create a similar effect. I'm loading plenty of this dark into my fan brush, holding it vertical and just pressing down, just touching and pulling down. And it creates a very similar effect. Plenty of color, and just a nice silhouette there. Don't really know, some old grasses and whatnot. Pulling some down a little bit lower. I want to be in the water a little. And then he actually took a little bit of this light color. Don't overwork it. And just gently pulling some across these here and there to give a little highlight. Not much. Okay. With my 1-inch brush, I'm going to take just that bottom, we're talking 1/8 of an inch here, and just grabbing a little, sinking it down into reflections here. very, very light, 2 hairs and some air. We blur that reflection sideways. There it is. You could even, with a tiny bit of liquid white, you could put a little water line in there. See, that was a little strong right there, so I'm just going to take my knife and just rub. Very, very little. We're just looking for a subtle indication of water. It still looks a little bright. There we go. There it is. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a nice little peninsula here. This is where Bob really starts slapping that brush again. And there. Creating a little landmass. And we could pull a little reflection down there too. And once again, I'm going to wipe out my brush. I tell you, before I wipe out that brush, let's go ahead and put in the next one. Bob had another big thing kind of coming on down. And he had this little feature here that looks like there's another water body right there. So I don't fill it all in. I just turn a little bit of it into reflection there. And maybe put a little right in front. It's going to be like a little bridge. Okay. Now we'll clean out this brush here. I may have my students just use a drop or two of paint thinner that I give them. Or you can just scrub out your brush as is and just come back to these highlights. Before we get to those highlights, we'll take our fan brush and put in a couple of happy evergreens. What the heck? Just tapping down. Loading my brush full of color, lots of paint. Holding it a little bit over to the right and below center. Just start tapping the corner, and I start tapping and I work from the middle out. There it is. We can give this guy a friend or two. Lost a hair. There we go. Maybe even a buddy over here. One of Bob's group of 3 ideas. Meaning, even the trees need a friend, so we try to give each tree a little buddy to hang out with. There we go. Something like that. And where is this sitting in our scene? I like that. Something like that. All right. Clean my fan brush here. I think I'm going to need a little more bright yellow. Sometimes you run out, you need a little bit more. A little bit of the liquid white. And I'm just going to tease this down here. Thin some yellow. Load it into the brush, and then I'll tint it with some sap, or maybe even a touch of phthalo green, a little bit of Indian yellow. It's all good. Now just a little bit thinner color than the background, and we'll highlight these evergreens here and there. Just tapping, making little frownies. Not a lot of detail on these trees back here. Kind of a flippity-floppity canvas. All right, now we can do the same type grass and such that we did back here, but we can do it with the fan brush. Lots of little taps, same concept. I'm gonna keep tapping as I run out of paint. I lighten my touch too. You can see how much darker it is. Notice I'm not really turning the brush so much. I'm mostly just moving my arm here. Now we have this little section, this little walkway almost, and we're going to try to create layers here to help create that depth and distance. Now we could fill this up with bushes, wild grass, all sorts of stuff. Boy, look at this. That is one full brush, huh? As I'm tapping, that paint's kind of pushing back, and you run out of paint. So when I reload, I overlap a little what I just did. And look how much brighter that comes off. Just a little more paint on the tips of the bristles. Now I'm going to take my time here and just slowly work my way. Creating this effect, and maybe some color comes out. This way. Now I'm not finished here, just following my heart a little bit. Maybe a little bit of darker grass, maybe a little bit brighter. It's completely up to you. Got another little section over here. Starts out bright. Tapping, letting it get darker and darker, so that we have highlights and shadows. Very nice. Now, what I'm going to do, oh, I totally forgot about this back here, didn't I? Oh my goodness. Same process here. And what I like to do when I'm doing a lot of highlights like this, and you see how it's getting darker and duller, don't fret. Go ahead and do a little more. We can always come back and lighten this up a little bit. That's what I'm going to do right now. You pick up a lot of that dark. I just stop, wipe out my brush a little, reload with whatever color will brighten the scene. Figure out for yourself what color that is. Lighter, brighter, yellowy colors, and create a note of spring. We could come in and put little flowers and indications of flowers if we wanted. Bob actually called this one a little bit fall here when he was talking about the darker paint up in the background. But you can change up the colors. You could do this in a winter scene, just a little bit different technique. And a lot of different colors than what we used here. A lot of white, right? There we go. We've got a little peninsula. We got some stuff happening, don't we? Pretty nice. Soften that a little bit. Back here, just cleaning up these little edges. There it is. Got a little highlight in my reflections down here. See a little more detail if you like. Throw in some highlight, remake your reflections. And now we got a bit of waterline to do. Now, I do have a big knife here, and if it gets a little out of your, comfort zone, you could just use the short edge of the knife and sneak into these harder to reach spots here, especially back here. Very little color, very little color. Find any of these little spots that you think are right up against the water and are always cutting sideways, leaving these all pretty flat. We want to create that illusion of flat water. Maybe a little one right there. I'm not sure if this one needs it. We'll see. There we go. Maybe make this one a little more visible. That water has been lapping up and kind of eroding this maybe. You can see some nice little water, a little ripple there. Maybe a hint of a water line way back there, a very light hint. Now, I'm going to thin down some Van Dyke Brown with paint thinner, really thin. We want it to flow out of the brush. So a few drops of the paint thinner, start working that brown. Here we go. Now Bob does the second way here. He starts at the very top and goes down. If you want to start at the bottom and go up, it's up to you. Make this one a little bigger and just push a little harder as I go down. There it is. And maybe I could just touch and lift this up a little just to let it come to a finer point. There it is. You got to be careful when you're using paint thinner, obviously. The more you go over the same spot, the more that paint thinner will just start melting everything. Okay? You want to be careful about overworking it. Maybe a little right there. Got us a little dead tree there. And maybe just a few little sticks and twigs running through here and between these trees a little bit. Couple little things happening down here. It's all good. I'll come back with my fan brush here and tap just a little bit of grass over the base of that tree. Kind of cover the foots, as Bob would say. You could almost see like a little rickety fence kind of helping you from falling in the water. Maybe a little bit more right here. Nice texture to this grass. Now, if you really wanted to see it catch a little bit of the light, I took a little bit of this liquid white. It does have a little titanium in there too, but definitely make this a lot brighter. Then, if there's a spot you think is catching the light just a little bit more, it should come off with that light touch. And just in a couple of spots here, put an extra little glint of highlight. You don't want to put it everywhere or else the effect is lost. Just want a little zing of light coming through. Maybe even on this one back here, just across the tops. Now, doesn't that give it a nice little dimension there? Especially this one. You could pick out a spot here or there. There, I like that. It starts to feel good. You want to keep putting it everywhere. But try to resist that temptation. Here I am, just a little bit more. Little flowery bit. There we go. Nice little scene. All right, well, I'm going to find a color here. I think a little bit of thinned down white will do just fine. And I'm going to sign over on the right. Very fun effects. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next video.